Hi there, my name is Bruce Bishop. I'm coming to you from Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, and this is the first edition of Go Right Ahead. And it's a short program where I'm talking to independent writers and artists who are about to launch a new work. And today I have JM Campbell, or Jamie Campbell, with me from Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. And how you doing, Jamie?
Bruce, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Good. Well, we're going to talk today about your latest, which is about to come out in a couple of days on August the 18th, 2025, called The Angel of Sallow Cove. So how about a bit of a snapshot about the book?
Sure thing. Here's the book, hot off the presses,
Very nice. Very
and
nice.
launching on Monday morning, the 18th of August. Um, the book is a suspense novel, and it's set in a fictional town in the southern U.S. My main character's name is Gabe Miller, and Gabe is circling the drain. He's never gotten over a tragedy that occurred 32 years ago, and now he's lost his wife and child. They've gone missing. Now, his brother is the deputy chief of police and desperate to help him out, but Gabe doesn't really want help. He wants to lose himself in a bottle and is obsessed with finding his missing family. So at that point, along comes a young woman, a mysterious woman who's found wandering naked in this southern town's historic cemetery. And of course, the townspeople aren't crazy about that idea. So Gabe's brother sets it up so that Gabe, who's a former psychiatrist, looks after or treats this woman. And right off the bat, Gabe is really reluctant to do this, but he finds out this shocking revelation from her that she thinks she's an angel fallen from heaven. And Gabe is a staunch atheist, so of course he has a problem with that. And the two of them sort of, I guess the best way of putting it, lays the groundwork for a relationship that grows between the two of them. And the entire story grows to a crescendo with a pride parade that's coming, the town's first and probably last pride parade, unfortunately. And the woman's odd connection to Gabe's monarch butterflies that he's protecting in his backyard. What happened to Tommy Gatwood 32 years ago, and ultimately the truth behind Gabe's missing family.
Wow. Yeah, I can almost visualize the town. Did you say it was in Georgia or a fictitious town in Georgia?
Yeah, it's loosely based on Savannah, Georgia, but
Ah,
it's a fictional town.
okay. Now you've know I've read I think all of your books, and you're known for the books of suspense and mystery and thriller, and a couple of them horror as well. Um, what inspired you to write The Angel of Sallow Cove?
Well, actually, it's interesting. My wife and I were in Savannah, Georgia back in 2011, and we visited this cemetery. The cemetery is called Bonaventure Cemetery. It's this really interesting place. It just can't describe it. I've never seen anything quite like it. And the cemetery was featured prominently in Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, both in
Right.
the book and in the movie. And there are all sorts of tales about ghosts roaming the cemetery. But one monument in particular caught my attention, that of a young girl named Gracie Watson. She was 8 years old when she died of pneumonia in 1889. And it's remarkable in that it's a life-sized replica of Gracie, sculpted out of marble using her photograph. Now, I saw this monument and I knew there was a story there, something that needed to be written. It was a germ, rather, of an idea at the time, the way all books are at the beginning. And
Right.
it took a long time to develop. I wrote the occasional passage or chapter along the way, but I was working on other projects. So I didn't delve into the book in a serious manner until 2019. And during that time, it underwent a number of different working titles, some of them quite awful, until I got the idea of setting the book in this fictional town called Sallow Cove.
So how long really did it take to write from first putting pen to paper, first draft to the actual editing?
Ooh, so again, I got the idea in 2011, and I really finished the book in 2020. It was fortuitous, really, because it was at the height of the pandemic, and that helped me get the denouement for this book. And I guess timing is everything because the COVID pandemic really inspired me to come up with something that I love. I love the ending. And the final story is a far cry from my original idea, which is often the case. But from Spark to Raging Fire, the book took me 6 years to finish and nearly another 5 years to publish.
Wow. Well, kudos to you for sticking with it and knowing that this was a story that had to be told. Love the idea about a statue in a cemetery that actually, triggered something and finding out about that, that little 8-year-old. What books or other authors, Jamie, have kind of triggered you to do fiction writing? Because I'm assuming that you didn't always write fiction.
Yeah, actually, I always have written fiction.
Oh, okay.
Um, but look, my very first love was The Hobbit. I'll start there. Tolkien, The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings. That's where it all began. So early on, I was reading a lot of fantasy and science fiction. So other authors like Robert Heinlein, Arthur C. Clarke, Asimov. Um, and Michael Moorcock too, an interesting British author who's, I won't call him obscure. He's written, I think, more than 100 books, but I don't know if he's terribly well known these days. He influenced me early on. And then there's Douglas Adams. I can't say enough about the man's ability to turn a phrase into comedy gold. And I often notice how I've written something and then think, wow, that sounds like something Adams would have written.
Right.
And I love the Gothic movement. Horror and suspense are powerful in their ability to evoke and entertain. And of course, there are biggies, Mary Shelley, Bram Stoker, to be sure, H.P. Lovecraft, and of course, Stephen King. But other authors have certainly influenced my style and approach to storytelling, like Robertson Davies, Harper Lee, Margaret Atwood, Hugh MacLennan, the list goes on and on. They've all had a powerful influence on my approach to writing. And it's important to note that I didn't set out to write like or in the style of any of these authors. When I write, and I'm sure you're the same way, I write in JM Campbell's voice, and you write in Bruce W. Bishop's voice, which has been influenced in some way and softened unconscious by these authors.
That's a really good point to bring up because I've been asked what's an author's voice before, and I have a hard time articulating what I think an author's voice is, and I certainly can't even tell you what my voice is. I know more of what my brand is than what my voice is. So how do you perceive that description, an author's voice?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think an author's voice is the soul of a story. It's the unique words and attitudes, thoughts and feelings of the author. It's the way the author tells a story, and that includes the choice of things like the narrator, themes, character interactions with other characters. It's that thing that you can't always put a finger on that makes a Stephen King different from a Margaret Atwood,
Right.
different from a John Grisham.
Yeah.
And it's important because it provides perspective and tone. This is my opinion, but I think I'm pretty close to the mark. Shaped by an author's thoughts, attitudes, and experiences. And I'll add to that by saying that even though authors tend to be different in their voices, an author's own voice is shaped by other authors.
So how do we deal with now the real emergence of artificial intelligence in especially the independent publishing community?
Wow, that's a good question. A recent edition of Poets and Writers featured the problem that modern publishing faces when it comes to AI. Agents and traditional publishers have been receiving a growing number of submissions that were created with AI,
Hmm.
and they have ways of checking. Now, getting back to self-publishing, it's far too easy for someone wanting to make a buck to generate stories using AI and then selling alongside authors like you and me who put the sweat, effort, and time into crafting stories. But I also see it as an opportunity if it's used for what it's meant to be, a tool. Now, I'll never use AI to generate a single sentence or even a word in my work. I use it in multiple ways to assist in my process, but never to write anything that would show up in a book.
Hmm.
So I use it for research, but I always double check because AI is notorious for getting things wrong. I use it for image generation that may or may not play a part in the book cover. And I've even had to provide feedback on my writing. It never hurts to get another voice, even if it is artificial. And after I finished The Angel of Sallow Cove, I had my AI read the book and give me its impression. And now it was a bit depressing, actually, because a book that took me years and hundreds of hours to write, and the AI read it in under a minute.
Yeah, yeah, that's the scary part of it all too. But I agree with your assessment. I've also used it for research and then double checked that research. But for example, if I want to find out all the major events that happened, say in Canada in 1900, I'd much rather quickly get that information and then pick out the pieces that I think I might use and then elaborate with further research from there. But the speed is incredible, isn't it?
It is, but your point is right on. It's a time saver,
Yeah.
and I think that the less time we can be spent doing all those things that we have to do as authors, such as research, the more time we have to write.
Yeah, for sure. One of my favorite authors from my younger years is James A. Michener. And,
Mhm.
his sagas are so involved and so long, his historical sagas. Um, I read later on that his wife helped him a great deal with the research. And when you think in those days, your research was confined to libraries and that was it. And
Yeah,
and archives.
yeah,
So the hours spent by him and his poor wife, would have been incredible.
it's a time.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Uh, Again, another comment, and just to quickly sum up in a few minutes, Jamie. Uh, a lot of talk in the past year or two about how books now, especially books that are bought online or digital versions, will often have warnings about the content. Um, I guess to forewarn the reader that there could be triggers within that would disappoint the reader, would upset the reader or whatever. How do you feel about that?
Well, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it too, but I've gone back and forth on this one, Bruce, and I don't use trigger warnings for a variety of reasons. Do people need to know ahead of time? I guess it depends on the person, the book, and the subject matter. Do I use language that some might find offensive? Sure, but I try not to use it gratuitously and only if it's appropriate for the character or the situation. The same thing with sex and violence. Now, violence can be a difficult one. I write horror and suspense, often with elements of mystery. So it's a given that someone usually dies and uncomfortable situations happen. But I try not to use violence gratuitously or needlessly. I don't consider most of my books to be what you'd call dark fiction, except maybe The House That Jack Built, my first book. And that was experimental that could use a thorough edit today if I had the time and inclination.
Mm,
But here's my point. Art has a long history of dealing with difficult subjects. Often art is meant to make people uncomfortable, to offend even. I mean, what I write is relatively tame even compared to popular authors like Stephen King. Now, I certainly don't come close to books like A Clockwork Orange or American Psycho in terms of needing to provide a trigger warning. And I think, who am I to predict what might trigger someone? Where do I start? I could overestimate or underestimate what might be a trigger. I might miss something, leaving people to feel excluded. So, it's a tough one, but my personal choice as an author is to not put trigger warnings in, but I do understand why some authors feel the need to.
right. I haven't as well. I've found that because up to this point, I've written historical fiction, that sometimes the vernacular, the language of the past has to be used in the dialogue of the book. And then in my author notes at the end of the book, I will remind people, well, that's how they really did speak in the 1920s, 30s, or 50s, or whatever. In other words, just especially for younger people that might just think that the word or words are being used gratuitously.
Right.
Okay, we're about to wrap up here, so I want to find out now where people can find the Angel of Sallow Cove.
Okay, the good news is the book launches this Monday, October or August 18th, rather. I'm getting ahead of myself. We've got two copies, two print copies plus the ebook. It'll be coming to other retailers in September, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where it goes. The book is
Yeah,
enrolled also, by the way, in Kindle Unlimited for those readers who subscribe to it. So I hope to bring the book to audio if I can find the time to get that done. But Monday morning, it goes live.
that's great. And there's two versions, right? There's the a paper and a hardback. Is that what you were showing me here?
No, no, it's actually, sorry. One is this one is what I call the pocketbook edition. So it's smaller. It's sort of more familiar to people
Okay.
who buy pocketbooks. This one is a large print edition that I made because, some of us get old and have problems seeing things. So this is a little bit of an easier read.
Absolutely. I think the older we get, the larger the print helps all of us.
Yeah.
But Jamie, best of luck on the launch and the new book. And we'll talk next time about your next one because I know you have another one brewing and almost finished. So anyway, we'll go from there. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Bruce. I appreciate you taking the time.
No problem. Bye-bye now.
Bye now.